I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this turned out to be true. A hostage held by Hamas being killed by an Israeli airstrike, because this has happened already, where several hostages were killed in an Israeli airstrike. The IDF knew hostages were in the building and still attacked it. Um, I mean, how many hostages have been held up in buildings that could have been attacked by Israeli airstrikes? Could be a whole lot. But the IDF doesn't care. All they want to do is blow up buildings and kill as many Palestinians as possible. And then you have the three Israeli hostages that were shot down by the IDF, who the IDF considered threats, even though they were waving white flags, wearing no shirts, screaming in Hebrew for help. The IDF considered them threats and killed them. And the IDF commander had to tell the IDF not to kill people waving white flags. And the IDF who did the murders did not get punished whatsoever, even though it's a violation of international law to kill people waving white flags or to kill hostages.
I can tell you that Nadav Popplewell is a British Israeli, 51 years old. We see a video of him, very short video, certainly compared to the other ones, which were very produced. This is about 15 seconds of him saying his name and age. And then there's a question mark, and Hamas asks what happens next, almost as if we're watching a Netflix series or something. And then within 2 hours, they put out an announcement saying that he had died, killed by Israelis in an airstrike, and was not able to be treated, did not receive medical treatment after that.
And then you also have the Hannibal Directive, which is something created by the Israeli government, which informs the military that they're allowed to kill hostages or would-be hostages so that enemies won't have a leverage against the Israeli government. So the IDF is all too willing to kill their own people, and uh, like on October 7th, there was a number of Israelis killed by the IDF, and that was to prevent them from becoming hostages. So the IDF is willing to kill any hostages whatsoever.
In the video, he has a wound on his face, like a black eye on the right-hand side, but we don't know when that was filmed. And we haven't seen, there has been a second video released just within the last 5 minutes, but there's no evidence that he has died. We don't see a corpse, which unfortunately I have seen in previous hostage videos. So what do we see at the moment is his mother was a hostage, released during the first hostage deal after 51 days in custody. His brother died at the same time. The family of the forum of hostages' families has said that every video like this is a cry from the heart of that individual who's been filmed in these circumstances. I just want to
If if Bibi Netanyahu and others in the Israeli government actually cared about rescuing these hostages, they would accept various fire deals that would allow for the hostages to be released, but all they do is constantly reject them because they want to commit a genocide in Gaza, kill every single Palestinian that they can, and force out anybody else because they openly talk about doing that so that they can redevelop Gaza into land for the Israeli government.
remind our viewers that there were 132 hostages remaining. Israel now says it believes 38 of those are no longer alive. That means around 95 remain alive.
And the Israeli government will never talk about the Israeli hostages killed by the hands of the IDF because they want people to talk about how the IDF is all too willing to kill their own people.
Alive, presumably, or no evidence that they are not alive. And the Hostages Families Forum is calling for an immediate ceasefire to just get those people out. A hostage deal, a ceasefire to release those people while they still have time. But of course, as we've been reporting, there is, in fact, a military expansion from Israel in the Gaza Strip.
So what is the Israeli government going to do if there's a bunch of hostages held up in a building in Rafah and an IDF member blows up the building and kills a large amount of hostages? Are they going to pretend it was just a mistake and that the IDF didn't mean to murder a bunch of hostages?
There's this news, as you just said, comes as Israel expanded its evacuation orders in Gaza. What's the latest that we're hearing from Israel about that military operation?
Israel is calling it a measured military operation. I think that's with one eye on Washington, which has said, all the players up to and including President Biden have said that they will not support a large, full scale military action in Rafah. So Israel says it's measured. However, there have been leaflets dropped to tell people to leave. That's Palestinians in Rafah. And we are now being told that on Monday there were 80,000 Palestinians who were displaced. They've gone to what Israel calls a safe area. UNRWA, the UN
Quote unquote safe area until the Israeli government decides to start attacking that new area.
Refugee Agency says there's no safe areas in the Gaza Strip. Today it's 300,000 there. Plus we're seeing a resumption of fighting in the north and Palestinian civilians being displaced from there as well. And that fighting is taking place in areas that Hamas has returned to. And there's a lot of quite bitter comment I'm hearing in the Israeli media, criticism of the government for its handling of this war, because there's been no plan.
I mean, it's not a war, it's a genocide. When you're starving millions of people, displacing millions of people, and killing thousands upon thousands of civilians, it's definitely not a war. It turns into a genocide. The Israeli government claims that they're just fighting against Hamas, but when you denied aid to innocent civilians and starve them, that's not a war against Hamas. That's a genocide against innocent civilians.
For the day after, and so Hamas has been able to return to these areas in the north of the Gaza Strip, so say the critics of the government, because Israeli troops are now being redeployed there a second time. I can tell.
Oops, mistake on that. But we all know that the Israeli government doesn't care about like helping Palestinians, innocent Palestinians, because the Israeli government doesn't believe that any Palestinian is innocent. The Israeli government believes every single Palestinian is connected to Hamas, even babies, so it's okay to kill babies. I mean, the IDF kills kids all the time, especially up in the West Bank, where they will kill 4, 5, 6-year-olds, or they will arrest 5-year-olds and torture them in Israeli prisons because they think every single Palestinian is a terrorist.